Hello and welcome to Real Time Recorded. This is Dave Michaels, or I'm Dave Michaels. I'm with Zeus. Hello, Zeus.
Hello, Dave. How you been?
I'm all right. A little slow there. Week 18 was a very busy week. Week 18, 2021 was a very busy week, but not a lot of announcements. So I want to focus on some announcements here. Let's start off with Cisco, which has been making a lot of announcements at a fairly regular rate for, I guess, 6 months now. But this was a big month for Cisco Webex. They announced one thing was personalized experiences. So they've got new personalized views in the Webex meeting client, so that you can, or the Webex client, I should say, since the meetings client is kind of going away. But they're kind of moving away from the basic grid format. Instead of picking a grid, you get to customize it a little more, and you can see what you want to see, select who you want to see. I think that's really nice. They also have a version of that for the host. This is really interesting for the hosts that can actually create a stage and put whoever they want on the stage, and actually send that out as a default for all the participants. I think that's really interesting. They came up with a co-host feature, which is really nice because there's a lot of things to do, like setting up the stage when you're the host, and sometimes you're busy hosting, and so you can have a co-host feature. They can do some things on the side. They've created some new views. So, if you're used to WebEx, and actually most meeting apps are like this, you go to a chat interface and you can do more and more things from this chat interface, including making calls and meetings and chat. And so now they've created some different views, and so they have a messaging-centric view, which is what we're used to. They have a new calling-centric view, and they have a meeting-centric view, which is more like the old WebEx meetings, and it's also more Jabber-like. And so it's kind of an interesting idea because most of these apps all start with a chat interface, and so they're creating a new personalized approach there. A very interesting feature. I'm surprised no one else has done this, but you can now mark chats as unread, something a lot of people do in email. That's just a handful. I mean, they did a lot of stuff. I think you probably got a few more, Zeus, but what are your thoughts on this? Cisco news?
Yeah, well, they've had the innovation engine going now for a while, and I guess it's all part of that vision of trying to make virtual meetings 10x better than in person. I do like the custom views, Dave, and I think that becomes important. The more virtual events we do, even if they become hybrid, I think I could see that even being big in education where students are, pinning their friends instead of the teachers and things like that. To give a dedicated view is important. One of the the integrations I did that I liked was the Box integration, though. And Box is the best cloud. In fact, calling them cloud storage is sort of really almost downplaying what they do. They're a full cloud content management vendor. I've done some work with them. They have some really sophisticated AI capabilities that can help you understand where documents are stored, so you don't wind up putting them in multiple folders and then losing track of versions and things. And so Boxes, they are the best in class vendor there. And I think what the integration with WebEx does is it makes it really easy for people to use both. So if you're a Box customer and a WebEx customer, you can stay in the Box interface and you can launch WebEx, or you can do it right from WebEx. And so I think the ability to link Box folders to a WebEx space does make that workflow easier. And I think historically what we've done in collaboration is we've had a bunch of tools that the user winds up being the integration point, and they wind up moving documents from one to the other. And that creates a very cumbersome way to work. It's not difficult per se as much as it is inefficient, and then you wind up with a lot of loss of version control. I think the other significant news this week from them was the closing of Slido. And I really like that tool. It's an audience engagement tool. Again, if we're going to be doing more things virtually, and I certainly don't, even with people going back to the office, I still see these tools being used. But Slido lets you poll audiences and understand what people are thinking in a much easier way than you can with the pre-built tools of WebEx. So my high-level takeaway from all the WebEx announcements is just they promised to step on the gas last year, and they've kept the pedal to the metal, and they're rolling out features at a rate that I don't think I've ever seen them or any other vendor roll out before.
Just a few more thoughts on the Box integration. I think it's important to point out that a lot of messaging apps are integrating with other things like Box and other applications. But what Cisco did was actually really interesting is it's a two-way integration. And so you can actually do everything that you want to do in Webex from Box, as opposed to insisting that Webex be your point of entry, which I think is interesting. And the other point is that their SVP, G2, came from Box, so I suspect there was a little bit of handshakes going on behind the scenes there. But
probably.
So that wraps up Cisco.
Yeah.
So the other story actually isn't a story at all. The other story is this was a big week for financial results. We had a lot of companies announce their results this quarter, and there was a definite recurring theme. Let me read some of these off to you. RingCentral announced that the recurring revenue was up 40% year over year, enterprise revenue up 62% year over year. They also raised their guidance. Avaya announced the revenue was up 66%. Facebook Workplace, we don't even hear hardly anything from them. They announced they had 7 million paid users. They have doubled. They were up 40%, but I think they've doubled in like 18 months, something like that. Vonage announced that their VCP revenues increased 23%. Their API revenues were up 47%. Twilio announced that their revenue was up 62% or 50% organically because they have that segment acquisition in there. So just this recurring theme of everything is up and everybody's announcing stellar results. It seems like double-digit, big number growth is now table stakes, which of course makes me a little nervous. And what's really odd about all this is that they announce these beat expectations numbers, and then the next day their stocks go down. Now, I'm pretty good at telling whether a company is healthy or not, and going through their results and figuring out what I want to know. I am really bad at figuring out if the stock price is going to go up or down. But here is a consistent, everybody just blowing away expectations, huge numbers, and their stocks going down. What do you think of this, Zeus?
I think you're overreacting a little. I think you're basing it off of like one day, and the market's been highly volatile. I know there's a lot of fear from investors that once people return to work, the work from home stocks are going to take a hit. I think that's something that Wall Street's got wrong. I think we're going to keep using these tools even when people are in the office. We've got a lot of, although the vaccine seems like it's working in the U.S., we've got a lot of instability all over the world, right? India's blowing up. Canada's, a big mess as far as it goes. And so these things go in cyclic trends. They were down yesterday, but today, the day that we're recording, Avaya's up, Ring was up early. I think they're flat now. Vonage is up, Zoom was up, and so Cisco has at a high not seen I think in 6 months. And so these things ebb and flow. And I think what you saw on the day that a lot of these companies announced their earnings was just an overreaction to other things in the market that weren't really related to these companies. I think that from an investor standpoint, if you believe in the cyclic trend of more communications moving to the cloud and they're becoming a fundamental part of the way we work, these things are a good long-term buy. I think it's really dangerous looking at stocks on a day-by-day basis.
I agree with you that the space isn't going anywhere. I think these companies are very healthy in many ways, and like I said, they're announcing incredible results. I'm just so surprised that the immediate reaction, not the long-term reaction, but the immediate reaction is so negative in the market. The market's clearly pretty jittery. A lot of concern around inflation, and it's kind of funny because they're talking about Carter-era inflation, and President Biden goes and visits Carter. It's like probably the wrong thing he wanted to do right now. But there's concerns around new taxes on capital gains. There's all kinds of stuff going on. The vaccine and the pandemic is an unprecedented situation. I think the only thing safe for these companies to do right now, the only thing that really works, is to be putting a bunch of their cash into crypto coins. That seems to make their valuations go up, but who knows how long that'll last. You active in the crypto coin sector?
I do have some cryptos. I have Coinbase too, and Coinbase has been sort of a disaster since it came out anyways. But the cryptos themselves have kept going up. The problem I have with cryptos is there's just no real logic to when these go up or down, right? It's based on a lot of what Elon Musk tends to say and things like that. So I think people were expecting Elon to come out on SNL and say something about,
Dogecoin, which is up over 100% in a week. It's just crazy.
And so I know a lot of traditional brokers won't touch crypto. And so you got to go to alternate sources. It's a lot of younger people tend to like it, which is moving the stock up. But, clearly we're not in the same kind of stock environment, when you saw the impact that Reddit had on GameStop and things like that, it's a different type of investor environment, and it's getting easier and easier to move these stocks up and down. It also, don't underestimate the impact that SPACs are going to have on the market. So we won't see as many traditional IPOs. I interviewed John Chambers a little while ago, and he said of the portfolio companies that he has, he wants most of them to go through the SPAC process, and so that'll be a faster entry. He did predict more volatility, though.
Now, I do want to. You talk about an untraditional market, or things are definitely changing. I want to highlight Twilio's briefing. I know you attend a lot of these briefings, and there's always a standard formula, right? They do like a PowerPoint presentation, they do their thing, they read the script, and then they take Q&A. And Twilio just basically said, "Hey, here's our results. No PowerPoint, no script. What questions do you have?" I thought that was like really weird at first, but the more I thought about it, the more it makes perfect sense. Publish the script, put your information in your results, and just do a Q&A. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, Twilio is an interesting company too, because they've kind of captured the mind of the developer early on. But if you look at the trend, Avaya rolled out a low-code, no-code interface. TalkDesk did as well. Five9 bought Wendoo, right? Things like that. So more and more companies are targeting the line of business manager as being the developer, right? Or at least kind of developer light through these low-code, no-code interfaces, which Twilio does not have. And so Twilio may have put themselves in a bit of a corner where they're developer only. So it'll be curious to see how they evolve their platform, to approach business people, not just developers. And so, but they're a good company. But you're right, I did like that format. Like the scripts go out anyway, so just send it.
And what's interesting too, and you mentioned this with Five9 and Wendoo and Inference. We've seen this with some other acquisitions too. Twilio had Cineverse and Segment and ValueFirst. Is these acquisitions that are happening now are companies that I'm not familiar with. Most of the industry historically has made acquisitions of companies, like consolidation plays, companies that we know, companies that we're familiar with. But I'm just wondering what Twilio or Five9 or 8x8 or whoever is looking at now, because it's probably a company I'm not that familiar with, and I think it'll.
Well, to me that's a positive sign. It's sort of a positive and negative for our industry, Dave, in that the communications. Alan Mazarek said this when he was head of when he was running Vonage. He was talking about digital transformation, and he said communications is foundational to digital transformation, right? And it has a big impact on customer experience and employee experience. So, but because of that, they now have to start making acquisitions of other things that impact customer and employee experience, right? And so that's why I think and now that we've had the AI influx as well, there's a bunch of companies that play in that space as well. So I think the overall addressable market for the companies we cover are getting bigger, which is causing them to make some acquisitions that are non-traditional. So to me, it's a good thing, because these companies are now becoming much bigger power players in the world of business than they were before. Like, frankly, back in the early days of, you think of the old VoiceCon days and things like that, those companies didn't really have any influence. I mean, they appealed to the telecom manager, but you didn't have, people basing their whole customer experience strategy around them. Now they are.
Well, that wraps up week 18 2021 of Real Time Recorded. We'll be back next week with week 19. I have a feeling we're going to have some CCAS topics next week. And until then, thanks for watching.